Silent? Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. We've got actually about 1 minute. We've got a few more folks logging in, so thanks for your patience. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here, and I would like to introduce our speakers. So first, Nick Mabonnet with Next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Mabonnet. I'm a Director of Partnership Growth at Next. Been at Next for about 9 months. Prior, I was in the insurance industry, primarily with Liberty Mutual for almost a decade now. So anyway, nice to meet everybody. Thanks for having me.
Great to join you, Nick, today. It's David Wellner with Evident, based in Atlanta, where our headquarters are. Been with Evident for over 3.5 years now, lead partnerships. Excited to discuss our brand new partnership that we announced last week with Next Insurance. I'm going to take ownership of the slides, and Nick, let me know if you need to go back and forth as we do this. We'll have a quick overview of our partnership, talk a little bit about like what we see in the market, why we're working together, open it up to Q&A. We got our lovely faces on the next slide, so I'll quickly skip over that one. But before we do that, just like really exciting because this is a unique partnership. Evident is extremely focused on doing one thing really well, and that's the digital first approach to automating insurance verification. Now, of course, Next Insurance is dedicated towards supplying insurance to small businesses. Both of those require a ton of focus, and there have been some skeletons, in the path. Like there have been insurance verifiers that have tried to broker insurance, and that if you've ever tried to sell or offer or broker insurance of any kind of variety, I think anyone on the call has that experience. That's a pretty tall task. But on the flip side, you often have brokers. They're saying, "Hey, I'm offering insurance. I can also verify it." And the problem with them is they don't have the technology at their disposal. The broker market is very fragmented, and it's not a focus area for them, and they don't have technology. And then also, there is some great benefit in separating these two entities, and that is like sort of calling balls and strikes over here, and does insurance meet requirements that an enterprise have? And then, if a small business that's participating in this needs insurance, they have a place to go for that. And there's a harmony that goes along with this. And the last thing before I get into it is just like, what seemed obvious to us, and why this is rare in the market, is that enterprises, we'll get into all this, enterprises need insurance, need to verify insurance for their third parties. And a lot of their third parties are small businesses. And those third parties need to buy insurance. Yet the idea of combining these two, which makes complete sense, is if I'm verifying, I may have a need to purchase. And that's ultimately, if you're on this call trying to learn about why these two companies have partnered, two best of breed companies, combining to create a complementary service in the verifying and then the placement. Nick, anything to add before I click through some slides?
No, thanks, David. I really appreciate. I had a couple of things. I appreciate the introduction and everything you mentioned. And you're right. Like Next is a tech-enabled, digital-first insurance solution company, and we want to focus on providing best-in-class digital experiences for the insurance. We view small businesses as entrepreneurs, and we want to make sure entrepreneurs can thrive. And in today's market, a lot of small businesses are asked to start working with large enterprises where compliance and verification are just the name of the game. So we view this as an awesome opportunity to partner with another best-in-class digital organization to help entrepreneurs and our small businesses thrive. So excited to talk about it, and thanks for the intro.
Awesome. And I think if Matt didn't mention it before he introduced us, there should be a Q&A option, and please throw in questions as we go. And at some point, we'll figure out how to access those questions and knock them out. We'll have plenty of time for that. All right. So yeah, like if anyone works for a larger organization knows like that third-party risk is actually a major element and risk vector for large organizations. It's this really fragmented ocean of small businesses that you work with that create your problem, because not only is that risk very diverse, it is uncontrollable. You don't get to tell these small businesses, these vendors, these contractors, these third parties, what their processes exactly have to be. You don't by nature insure them. You don't like an employee, like you'd insure an employee. They are independent companies. And by nature of them being independent, they create even more risk for you. So just a startling statistic here is every business has faced third-party risk and the materialization of third-party risk. And more we're dependent on third parties as we outsource our business. To try to really illustrate this, what is really at stake, try to draw this out. And we did some animation. We'll see how this works out with the BrightTalk software. But you have a set of enterprises. This ecosystem is not about isolating just one, but let's just go over to Enterprise One. Enterprise One has a whole bunch of small businesses, a bunch of third parties. And by the way, I'll toggle between third parties and small businesses. The reality is big businesses do business with enterprises as well, and they need to have insurance. But of course, when it comes to the real sweet spot of Next and the special offering they have is helping small businesses get insurance. And there's certainly a lot of those in the third party network. When something goes wrong, let's try this out. All right, Red, to that small business. Let's say we're dealing with a large retailer. Let's say the retailer is a supermarket and this is the lettuce producer, and only use this example, not so much to resonate as everyone on the call is producing and delivering lettuce, but it does get that specific. There's risk in there, and let's just call the classic listeria risk or foodborne illness risk. And the trouble is that one lettuce farmer that's selling lettuce to this, let's call it supermarket, the enterprise, they could take down the whole business. And what happens is when they have a major claim against them, that claim becomes a class action lawsuit. And it doesn't just go against that small business, which the claim is against the enterprise. It ends up impacting that same small business as they solve all the other enterprises, because that is the point. Small businesses don't just do business with one enterprise, they do business with many enterprises. So from an enterprise perspective, this one small business that you're working with, that many other peers are working with, can take you down. And I just return to Nick, right? Like one class action lawsuit, major headache, which is why you require that the small business has insurance. What's it like for the small business when this happens?
I mean, yeah, David, this is a great example. And for a small business, this is something that could be catastrophic. That could be the end of the business and truthfully shuts a lot of businesses down if you're not properly covered or know what type of operational risk that you're introducing with the business you're running. So worst case scenario, this could be the end of the small business. Also brings a lot of risk onto that enterprise client where their name, their reputation, their goodwill are associated with whatever incident that might have happened on site, online, from that third party with that large brand being tied to it. So there's a lot of risk happening here. It's not to be all doom and gloom, but in the insurance industry, this is something that we're trying to make sure is something that doesn't happen. We want to insure these small businesses and have peace of mind. So it's definitely a real thing, and this is definitely a real risk.
Great. So I just want to spend a moment on where the enterprises are in all this, and then I'll toggle to where the small businesses are. So the trouble is that if all of this risk was the same and uniform, it'd be a lot easier to keep an eye on it, and also be a lot easier to offer insurance, because if every insurance policy was identical, then it'd just be like, selling burgers. But the third party risk is highly diverse for a lot of enterprises, and getting visibility is very hard. So this is what the enterprise goes through. Of course, we have our lettuce supplier here on the left. but encouraging everybody to be healthy. But whatever this might be, whether it's a large retailer, whether it be someone deeper in a supply chain, a manufacturer, even a lending institution, your third parties, the small businesses you do work with, are not necessarily suppliers. They could be your borrowers. The point is that they all present risk to you. In that last example, it's financial risk, and they are all of different types of companies. So here you have food suppliers. You could have folks transporting the food. I've got product liability. I've got commercial auto liability here. Equipment and maintenance. This could be anything from workers' comp. Technology could introduce cyber, errors and omissions. Services can include things like professional service liability, so on and so forth. So essentially, the broader and the more diverse your third-party network is, the more diverse the risks are, the more complicated the insurance verification becomes. And of course, if these folks don't have insurance, the more complicated the placement's going to be. Visibility. Most businesses do not have a lot of visibility. It's the classic business, and I can't speak for all, there's a massive spectrum of this. The classic business will collect a COI and ask for a COI upon onboarding of a supplier. There's a big degree of whether or not they really review that and whether they actually get a digital format of that, because it is often a manual process and a paper-based process. But they check that out as part of overall onboarding, and they're like, all right, looks like you're good with us, and they move on. But the whole problem with insurance is that it does expire. Most insurance, Nick, is it fair to say, has a 1-year duration on it?
Yeah, usually 1-year terms. Yep.
Yeah. So really, at any moment in time, according to our data, in verifying for enterprises like this, only about 25% of your typical third-party network will be compliant. That means that the other 75% just are not supplying you with their COIs, don't have a very good means to do it. It is difficult to communicate them and ping them and email them and ask them for their COI. You think you can call them on the phone. Well, it's hard to send a COI through the phone these days. I know they still have faxes, but that doesn't work. They oftentimes don't have their COI. They have to go to their broker or agent and get that COI. So a game of telephone begins to happen, where it's very hard to clarify what this insurance requirements are, as they're diverse. And in the end, you get a whole bunch that don't have insurance, or they have gap insurance. What that does is it presents an opportunity to place insurance, which is why we see time and time again. It's not the only reason why folks are not compliant, but a whole lot of time folks are out there and they're like, well, I don't have the insurance. I went out and I got insurance for myself maybe one time ago, but now I'm doing business with this enterprise and they have a requirement. And how am I going to meet that requirement? And that's where a need to possibly place insurance comes in. So Nick, I want to turn to you, and what this slide is meant to do is capture some of the challenges small businesses face in getting insurance. So I'll give you the floor.
Yeah. So thinking about the current economic conditions and small businesses, it's kind of set out there. But some of these stats that small businesses are the backbone of the economy. So what happens with the larger economy is impactful very much to small businesses. 99% of all businesses out in our country are small businesses. 44% of all economic activity generated is from small businesses, and over 60% of all new job creation from 2015 to 2020 was from small businesses. So whatever happens with the broader economy will impact small businesses. And you combine that with what's going on today with rising inflation, higher borrowing costs, a very, very fierce hiring market. It's putting a lot of pressure on small businesses' bottom line, where they might look around for saving money on cheap insurance or reducing coverage. That obviously introduces risks into these networks. Finally, if you think about the hiring market, there's hiring signs everywhere, and businesses are being forced to hire unqualified or unskilled workers, which also introduces risks into the operation of maybe they don't know how to operate a certain piece of machinery, or they never performed a certain task before where they're prone to injury or injuring others. Combine that with the fact that small businesses are acting like personal consumers every single day in terms of their digital wants and needs and their expectations of how they purchase insurance, how they interact with insurance, is becoming much more digital focused. So these are putting a lot of pressure on small businesses as they think about their risk-making decisions or lack of them as they're facing all these different headwinds in the economy.
Great. Now, like one of the reasons we're most excited about Next and like Next Insurance, I didn't even know this was possible, Nick, is that I talked about the diversity. Like these small businesses for us, like they're all over the place in the business types that they have. So they all need different types of insurance, different levels of insurance to meet those requirements. And I kind of just assumed that like they each have to go to specialized brokers to go buy this insurance. And for me, like when I found out about what Next Insurance was able to offer, it kind of like broke that compromise. I could send them to one place and they can get taken care of. Like, how is that possible? To what extent is that right?
Yeah. So again, as I said before, like Next views themselves as a tech company, an insurance carrier, and also an insurance brokerage. So we work with partners that want to send us a broad and diverse range of customers. Our Next Insurance products are made for a broad range, national state or across the country, excuse me, from your electrician to your retail store, to everything in between. We also work with other insurance carriers where if there's something that's very unique or very risky, we can find a market for that. So yeah, David, to your point of like, we view ourselves as a one-stop solution. It's very much so. And we have the history working with all different types of partners to take on the type of diversity, as you mentioned, that exists in small businesses and is not going away.
Excellent. So I just wanted to show, before we go up to Q&A, just to show a few illustrations. This whole point of this call was to explain the partnership. So here's like, how this looks in front of a small business. So enterprises will use our software and they'll configure the requirements and set some branding standards. In this case, imagine you have an enterprise called Grab and Go, a convenience store, and they'll do is they'll load one or many of their third parties, small businesses, into their system, and a bunch of requests will go out, and these requests will all be configured. And they'll have language like, hey, on behalf of Grab and Go, because you work with Grab and Go, we need to verify your insurance. And if you want to learn about your requirements, here's a place you can go. That's where that link is up there. And then if you want to verify now, go ahead. So, hey, I got my COI ready, or if I want to send this I can flip this to my agent. I'm good. If I'm already compliant and I'm happy with my insurance, that's all there. If I want to learn more about another option, if I, let's say, wasn't compliant, and there's a whole nother version of this email that is for non-compliance, you have a gap, you're missing certain types of coverage that make a lot of sense, or you just want to learn about potentially getting a better price. You have a renewal and you're unhappy with the price increase, and you want to look at another option. What we do is we include the link to Next, path to Next right here, and it's there for you. And the whole idea is that you're going to be sent to Next Insurance and have an opportunity to very quickly place your insurance and prove your insurance that not only meets your business needs, but also certainly meets, in this case, Grab and Go's requirements, so that you're going to be able to check the box off on this verification and then, of course, have competitive coverage. So that's just an illustration there. And then to give it a little more color of the sort of the technical benefit, what's happening behind the scenes. The classic model today is enterprise comes to Evident to go verify insurance with a third party. We collect COI from the third party or their agent or broker, and then we verify it. We're bringing in that certificate of insurance, and we're of course digitizing it, but it does start with either PDF or image, a physical document. What's disruptive about the Next Insurance partnership is that if that third party were to already buy insurance through Next Insurance, or they chose to go to Next Insurance as part of this process that I just showed, a direct link between Evident and Next Insurance allows for that coverage to be communicated seamlessly. And not only does that have all the goodness of making this connection much more real time, more accurate, more updated, it completely circumvents the need to go to the third party, the small business. So the enterprise has got a much better chance of knowing whether there's compliance. They've got a much better experience for that third party. The third party gets, doesn't no longer don't have to hear from Evident anymore, which is, I hate to say, it's kind of a nice thing, and they can just go on their very way. So the power of that connection when someone does buy digitally through the Next Insurance approach really is realized at once, and it's realized throughout the life cycle as long as this enterprise is working with this third party.
Yeah, David, you said it best. I think it takes a lot of stress off of third parties where they can focus on doing what they do and thrive at doing versus collecting paperwork and sending it on their way. Make sure the enterprise or have an accurate and up-to-date kind of insurance network of third parties, and reduces their overall enterprise risk and bottom line and type of operational costs in terms of lawsuits they might be receiving. And then, the exciting part that we like is that direct connection on the back end, where we can continually feed information back into Evident and help risk managers and evidence partners keep their third-party networks compliant. So we're really excited about it. It's something that we continue to look to grow and can get deeper on, and it's the first step in a long journey between our two organizations.
Great. So lastly, this is really just a summary. Both companies, both Evident and Next Insurance offer very distinct and meaningful value props when they're separate. In fact, they both reduce risk. They both, help improve compliance rates and save customers time and money separately. But in working together, it really accentuates what this does. I mean, the enterprise risk is reduced because they're small businesses they work with become compliant. The small business that buys insurance is now protected. So both sides of this ecosystem are now in a much better shape. Compliance increases, and it's a time saver for the enterprise. They don't have to track down. We don't have to track down this insurance for them. And it's certainly a time saver and an improvement for the small business. So, and if their premiums are competitive, then it's just a flat out reduction in their costs. So it's a win-win-win for all parties involved, and certainly exciting to be partnered with you guys, Nick.
Yeah, we're excited too. Thanks, David.
Awesome. So with that, I'll just give it a pause for people to start typing in any questions. I'll go find the questions button and we'll navigate through that, and that'll be that. Okay. So we'll just figure out who's best to answer each one of these questions. Encourage anybody asking questions to add for Next or for Evident maybe. What is the experience like buying insurance from Next? All right, so that can go to you, Nick. What is the experience like, and how long does it take, and how is the experience?
Yeah, so our experience is very much user-centric designed, I would say. Overall, I think we say 5 minutes or less. I can get through it a lot quicker because I know I've been doing this all the time. But it's a digital-first quoting experience and binding experience. A lot of times, depending on you're going to other insurance technology providers, digital brokers, or even your broker, there's going to be a lot of back and forth or human underwriting or phone calls involved. We really focus on trying to make this interaction seamless and frictionless to the customers in a complete quote and bind digitally for Next Insurance. If there's risks out there that are, I'm going to pick on a risk out there that tend to be very risky and hard to place, like a tree services company. We have an offline route to our broker model where we can access 30 A-rated carriers to place that risk still. So it's very much digital oriented. And then if we need to go and find homes for very risky classes of business, we have that outlet there. So 5 minutes or less, no human underwriting, no back and forth, and instant certification. So that's how I describe it, David, in the purchase experience.
No, great. And if for any reason I just can't buy insurance, it doesn't work out, I'll know that within 5 minutes, and I'll have to just move on. But you get that clarity.
Yes, and then if you will be able to find an outlet, we view that we can find a home for everybody through our brokerage network that we have as our own agency, as well as our own insurance products.
Excellent. All right. So here's one. I think this would be for both of us. If a firm like mine, this is the person asking this, sees a synergy as a partner with Next or Evident, how would one approach that, if at all? Well, I could certainly speak for Evident that we welcome all types of partner exploration. If we didn't have that attitude, we wouldn't have started working with this great partner in Next. So I would turn you to my email address that's posted on the screen right now, wellner@evident.com, evidentid.com. So please just introduce yourself and tell me that you really thought I did great on this webinar, and we'll talk. Nick, is it the same for you or any other?
Yeah, you can reach out to me if you have any more questions on if there's opportunities to work together. My email address is out there, and you can reach out to me and either talk to myself or a member of my team. But we're happy to have any conversation.
Great. So a question here, what is the monetization model? Are we paying a subscription fee for the compliance verification service? Are we getting a referral commission for the folks who refer to that need insurance. So let's start with the easy part, is that evidence insurance verification model is really simple, and it is a very straightforward subscription fee to the enterprise. So the enterprise is the one that's really facing this risk and wants to verify. We think it makes the most sense that there's a subscription fee applied to them for that. Now, downstream, if insurance is placed, this is where it gets a lot more complicated. Where if insurance is actually placed downstream by Next Insurance, the big answer is it would have to depend. It is not so straightforward, because you're dealing with a highly regulated market of, just like, correct me if I'm wrong, like Next Insurance just came out and be like, you help me buy insurance, you help me sell insurance, just start like shelling out money to everyone. There's a quite regulated market. Next, I don't know if you could educate us all on this, but this is the one where it has to depend, and it would come down to a discussion and better understanding of the type of business that is the enterprise that needs to verify. I'll leave it as my end of the piece, but if you have anything more to add.
No, I think you said it right. Like, insurance is extremely regulated industry out there, and it does depend on the model out there of how we employ. I think we would take it by a case basis. So we could take that offline if whoever answered that question can reach out to me. But it depends on how we set the partnership up and the flows of business and all that. But yeah, that's I guess that's my best answer, David.
That's great. And then someone asked the question, do we charge a fee if you want to be verified? Well, just to be super clear, small businesses, third parties, they don't pay a fee. They're the ones that are just trying to do business with this large enterprise. And they're being asked to supply their certificate of insurance and proof of insurance. And if they want to work with Next Insurance, that's there for them as well. If they buy insurance, they have to pay for insurance, but there's no fee in having to prove their insurance. And that's a really nice. We think that's a really nice model. We think it's a little bit forced to say, hey, sort of imposing a fee on you just because you're just trying to go along and do business. We have some time for just a few more here. How do you determine what coverage is needed? So Evident and Next Insurance are not at the forefront of determining coverage requirements in this case. We both bring a lot of expertise to this. So what's happening is that enterprises will require that their third parties have insurance. If they don't know those requirements and they haven't set those requirements, then there's a whole wealth of knowledge that we've accumulated over working with hopefully similar companies with similar risk profiles in really trying to set those requirements. And we even have customers that say, we actually don't have requirements yet, but we want to know what our third parties have. We want to know that they have insurance, very basic. Do they have it? Is it active? And we want to learn what coverage they have. So the technology allows for you to do that learning, and it allows for you to impose requirements. So we can help instruct those requirements. But if you already have those requirements, and I'm trying to interpret the question depending on the framing it's coming from, the small business is informed of those requirements through our UI. We educate them on what those requirements are. And if they go to Next can help them meet those requirements. But then, of course, Nick, you could maybe speak to this. They may not just want to meet the requirements of the business that they're selling to. They may want to meet broader sets of requirements. And to what extent can they get that expertise from you?
Absolutely. And we view ourselves as insurance experts across multiple domains. So yeah, I think just because there's a requirement from an enterprise, there doesn't mean there's more opportunity to educate customers that come to Next Insurance in terms of where they might have additional needs that they might not be required to purchase, but still want to have a peace of mind that they are protected in case of an incident or event happens and their business doesn't fail. So we can do it through our digital platform. We can do it through our contact centers and make sure that insureds are at the level that they want to be, have insurance and feel like they have a peace of mind. So we feel we can do this really, really well, David.
Excellent. And I see that this might be an area of interest, because it's a similar question. How much coverage should I require from my third parties? So again, if you're in a situation where you don't already have a contract with the third parties, and those requirements are unknown, the evidence software is incredibly configurable down to really almost the nth degree of detail into what you can configure. So there's a decisioning engine that's configurable that will allow you to select coverage types. Within coverage types, coverage limits, any other potential riders like additionally insured. It allows you to introduce exclusions and endorsements. So really like mirroring every type of insurance, whatever is needed to set as a requirement is there for you. In terms of instructing what those are, this is something that we can leverage our knowledge in helping to inform, given our experience. And also, just as a form to get started, we do release a report. I think we're at this point on an annual basis. And I know our latest report we're going to be issuing soon goes into different industries, because this will very much vary by industry and the type of enterprise that you're in and the type of third parties that you work with. So there might be some good guidance in there in terms of, okay, if I'm in this industry, what's a good rule of thumb for a type of coverage? And then the last thing I'd say about this is, you have what you like to have. I want all my small businesses to have this much level of insurance. In fact, they all signed up for it. But then, sometimes there's economic realities. And, Nick, I don't know if you see this, but like there's certain things that cost more and more money to insure. And small businesses, in order to protect themselves, have to start looking at reductions. And you'll be very visible in the product to see what areas these small businesses are missing. Like you see those trends, like they don't seem to have, this particular limit or this particular rider. And that will tell you a lot about your posture as to whether or not you want to make that a requirement, or loosen that requirement. So there is an iterative process that goes on with our product. All right. I don't see any others. Great. It's a simple, totally makes sense to me partnership. So I don't know, 32 minutes, probably more than enough time. So, Nick, thank you so much for joining me today and covering this. And I really look forward to working with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, David. Really appreciate it too. We're excited about the partnerships, as I said before, and the value proposition we together can bring to prospective risk managers and enterprises, and making sure that their network's compliance, their third parties thrive, and helping out the overall economy. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
See ya.
All right, I'd like to thank our speakers, David Wellner and Nick Mabune, and we are going to shut it down here. Again, if you've got any questions, then reach out to us. Thanks very much.